here. So we will get underway. If I'm doing my counting right.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes.
All right. We will call to order. Will the secretary take the roll, please?
Madarima Chakraborty,
I'm here.
Ted Foss,
Here.
Virginia Bloom.
Here.
Who else is on with me? Colleen Burns,
I'm here.
Suzanne Fairfax,
Here.
Matt Fruth,
Here.
Sarah Glaffen is also here. Did I give
Excellent.
everybody?
I believe so. Thank you, Sarah. In pursuant to the state executive orders and disaster proclamations, is there a motion to conduct the meeting virtually?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Hearing no discussion. Will the secretary take the roll, please?
Madarima,
Here.
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Virginia,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Sarah's a yes.
Thank you, everyone. We are moving forward now with approval of minutes of our September meeting. Does anyone have any questions or corrections related to the minutes from September?
It's a tiny one, but on page 12, it should say per capita grant rather than per capital grant. I'm sorry, Rita, I didn't let you know that.
That is helpful.
Well,
Anything else? Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Colleen. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll say Matarima got that seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, will the secretary take the vote, please?
Madarima,
Aye.
Ted,
aye.
Virginia, Colleen,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and Sarah Glavin is an aye.
Okay. They are approved. We'll move on to public comments. I received several emails via our web form. I believe David was also copied on those. Rita,
I believe there
I
were
will
5.
yeah, 5, correct?
Yes, I believe there were 5.
I will forward those to you, Rita, to be included as an addenda to the minutes. Are there any guests from the public who would like to make a statement at this time as part of our public comments? Hearing none, we will move on to trustee comments and calendar. Okay.
I'm sorry, are those public comments, they're not read into the record, or they're not part of
I can read them. I'm going to forward the emails to Rita to be included as an attachment to the minutes.
Okay,
So
but they
will-
don't inform our discussion today?
I can, if you would like me to, I can read them to you.
Am I opening up a
I
can of, am I opening up a can of worms?
No,
I
not
mean,
at all.
It's about the process really that I'm curious about.
I would say, I mean, I can read them all verbatim. The consistent theme of them is related to senior services and book discussion group, and I would say a feeling that they are a disappointment that these citizens feel are being cut without explanation, without a kind of public communication and explanation as to why these programs that they feel were specifically about senior services were cut. But I think David addressed that in his email discussing some of the staffing changes and some of the staffing departures that have limited the ability of the library to provide services until such time as those staff are replaced.
And,
But if
Madarima, normally I think as far as process, a citizen can make these comments, but we do not then discuss them at the board meeting at that time. I mean, so it does not open up, as you say, a can of worms. It's simply our president, Matt Fruth, says, thank you for your comments, and they're entered into the record.
Yeah. I'll be sure to copy everyone when I send them over to Rita, so you can see them ahead of next month's minutes. But if anybody would like me to read them verbatim right now, I'm more than happy to. None of them are excessively long. I just I think I summed them up. It's a very common thing. I think we've seen they're much in line with the letters to the Wednesday Journal that we saw last week, and I would imagine likely see tomorrow as well.
Okay, thank you. I don't personally need them to be read out loud. I was just curious about the process.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. So we have our board calendar ahead of us, in front of us. Any questions about anything on that?
Should the IGov meeting be on there, or is that separate?
No, if you can provide that, if the dates are available or known, we can have that included in the calendar.
I can send them to you. They just sent out new dates.
Okay. We will have those added. Any trustee comments? Okay. We will move on then to staff reports. Executive Director.
Thanks, Matt. So you have my narrative report on your screen. We also have our library strategic priorities report for the month of October and our core use statistics report. If there's anything you would like me to elaborate on, I would be happy to. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you might have about any one of the three reports.
I would simply say that and we will be talking about this later in the meeting, but the new draft of a library for everyone it's a wonderful new title for something that what used to be called like the way we should behave.
The rules of behavior.
Yes.
Yes, that's presented again for the board's discussion and potential adoption this month.
Okay. Any other questions for David's report? Okay, I will, as I always do when I see this in documents, I remark on the irony of a page that has text that says this page left intentionally blank.
That is a product of trying to add page numbers into an Adobe document.
Yes,
My staff.
I've encountered it myself,
Good, yeah.
but it is always ironic that that text is there to state that it is blank.
Because in the stating, it has in fact not become blank.
There you go.
All right, our strategic priorities report. So, anyone have any comments or questions regarding that document? That section. I think as I saw him pop on, Mr. Since he is here on the call, I would like to take a moment to congratulate Stephen Jackson on his recent hiring as in our new equity director position. I would, but I think I also saw a small child, so I understand. I completely respect the need to address that as well while you're here. I personally it was wonderful to read so much about that work that is being done and those descriptions of those groups and the feedback and reflections presented. I think that is, for me, evidence that the programming and the efforts are reaching those in the community that are who are open to such work, and hopefully taking it beyond. Anyone else with any comments or about our strategic priorities report?
I would like to say about Stephen Jackson, it was also wonderful, given all of the kerfuffle, to see that his work is going forward.
I'm also
Agreed.
really impressed with how he answered questions and addressed the concerns that were brought up, or whatever was brought up by the reporter. I was truly impressed. It made me feel good about our community, and just all of it makes me feel really good about Oak Park right now.
Thank you, everyone. I truly appreciate it. It's an honor to serve in the community that I grew up in. And I find pleasure every day with the ability to do it. I will continue to serve my community and make my community members proud.
You're doing that already, Stephen. Thank you. And we will, and if there's no other questions about our strategic goals, we'll move on to statistics. Anything that anyone have any questions or anything that David or Mallory want to draw our attention to?
Sorry, this might seem a little bit obvious, but I'm guessing the uptick in things like our Wi-Fi use and everything is just because building has more accessibility now.
I think that's a big part of it. Yes, absolutely. We're still not obviously seeing as many people coming into the building as they did before the pandemic, but that I think has a lot to do with the fact that we're still not hosting, the library's still not hosting programs indoors. But people are still coming to the library more than they were, and consequently they're making more use of things like our computers and our Wi-Fi.
This isn't related, but I think last month, David, you had said that the whole question about the not public Wi-Fi maybe, but more like high-speed internet access. I can't remember, you mentioned another meeting maybe that was coming up, or a conversation. Am I remembering that correctly? Is that conversation moved at all?
There was yes, we were talking, Matt and I at that meeting, we're talking about the conversation hosted by the Village of Oak Park and Vicky Skaman as a part of the Council of Governments, and a conversation about how the village might use American Rescue Plan Act funds. And that I had been encouraging the group to think about the use of funds for extending broadband access throughout the community, so that Vicky Skaman, the village president, has hosted 2 conversations now for the Council of Governments about that. I can't say that, that subject or that proposed use of money is being seriously considered, but it has been discussed. But that was what I was referring to.
And David, how many communities have community-wide free access to the internet now? I mean,
Gosh, Ted, I have no idea.
like what, 5% of the country?
I don't have. I mean, we could.
I think you're probably looking at percentages of percent.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, it is, well, I would say that Ravi from the village trustee, reached out to me during the election about this, and we were looking at the concept of as a publicly supplied internet, even base level, not even high speed, but just base level internet service. I could not find examples. I mean, it was non-existent, as I think the closest one was I want to say there was something out on the West Coast, but it wasn't this exact model. It was something else, and it didn't quite fit. I mean, had been and it had been more that the municipality had more set itself up as an internet service provider than purchasing service and making it available. It was more of a developing it themselves. So I mean, it wasn't even on the same level that we would be able to, that anybody here was talking about. So it didn't exist. Looking at through Governing Magazine and a number of other sources, just in my network across the country of government people who work in state governments, just no one knew of anything that existed like that.
Thank you.
I'm just curious if there's anything that we could do to help bring that conversation to the forefront. I'm guessing no, but.
Well, I think that you could certainly make your point of view, communicate your point of view to the village board, to Vicky Skaman, the village president, and to the other village trustees. I think that's certainly one way to do that.
And find someone willing to, someone with lots and lots of money willing to give them the money to do it.
There you go.
I mean, it's just, the funding is the issue. I think that there is a will if the funding can be found. I've not heard anybody who said it's a bad idea until you ask them to pay for it. So. All right. Then we will move on to financial reports. We have our summary from Jeremy. So any questions?
I was a little confused, and I don't know whether this was in the financial report, but on page 24, under monthly cleaning, there were like two figures, and I guess that we pay each month for the cleaning, but it was a little confusing as to there were like two charges. And Rita, this is probably like there are two checks written.
Tell me where you are in the package.
Page 24 in the packet.
Page 24. Are you looking at the
these are my notes when I was reading.
Are you looking at the disbursements, or are you looking at something else?
I was looking at the disbursements.
Yeah, that's one step ahead of where.
Okay, sorry.
We were just going at Jeremy's
Okay.
narrative and kind of our overview. Is there?
Can I just let me just
Sure.
chime in here? It is in the narrative as well, and there are the expenses. You'll see the first listing there. 18,536 made to Alpha Building Maintenance Services.
Mhm.
The first charge, the 3,475, that was from August 24th through the end of August, which was when they began, August 24th, taking over the contract.
Okay, I see. Okay, thank
So
you.
it's just a portion of that, like prorated for that month.
Right.
And then the
Thanks.
15,000 is the regular fee. And then with ongoing, it'll be the additional 850 a month for cleaning the Dole restrooms.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay. Any other questions in the financial report summary? Okay. Going on to the disbursements, Ted had his question. Anything else from anyone regarding our statement that begins on page 24 and runs through? Let's see here. Let me get that. Hold on. Let's see here. Page 49. Hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve the resolution on disbursements?
So moved.
Moved by Ted. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Sarah. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, will the secretary take the vote, please?
Matarima,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Virginia. Aye. Colleen,
Aye.
Suzanne. Can't see Suzanne.
Suzanne is having a drink.
I'm so sorry. I
You
didn't.
can
I
give
forgot,
hand signals.
I forgot I was muted. Aye.
Matt,
Sorry.
Aye.
Sarah's and I.
All right, thank you, everyone. That is approved. And there's any other questions regarding our any of our finance sheets and documents?
I was very happy to see on page 56 that the insurance for the art comes out of our art fund, because that had been a question I'd had before, and I think that is appropriate. So thank you, Jeremy.
Excellent. All right. We will go on then to intergovernmental agreement and intergovernmental committee, IGov. Anything to report?
Sorry. Huge bite of my dinner. I give. We talked about potentially revisiting the tax forum that we did, gosh, it was pre-COVID. And the cohort is interested in revisiting that as a topic potentially for the spring forum. Given that, the timing of when property tax bills come out. The one that we did pre-COVID was pretty well attended. There was a large discussion around how we frame that up for the community, making sure that it's useful information and doesn't draw unnecessary ire. So I anticipate that the spring forum will largely be around taxes, and the fall forum, they are actually the forum on sustainability was so successful, they're thinking about revisiting that in the fall, which would be fun. So and Suzanne can chime in. She is our newest member of iGov. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for volunteering to join me. Everybody was delighted to have you.
That was a valuable meeting, and I look forward to, I was recruited onto the committee for the spring forum. So I look forward to working on that.
Thank you both. Any questions from anyone regarding that? Okay. COG, David touched on this a little bit. We met and discussed a number of the public service items around the funding and just the general informational topics. David, am I forgetting anything?
No, I don't think so. I think the principal topic was the ARPA funding.
Yeah. Okay. Ila Legislation and Advocacy. The big piece was the ILA conference, virtual conference earlier this month that had an advocacy session. LaShawn Ford was one of the legislators on tips for communicating with a legislator on advocacy and lobbying issues. I ran into him at the elected officials barbecue. I think it was that same night. I think it was that Wednesday night, and he felt it went very, very well. He was glad to be able to participate, and the ILA staff was thrilled to have him. They thought he did a great job too. So that was kind of our big thing for the month. I don't think we have anything legislatively that we're looking at for veto session, which is happening now. Friends of the Library.
The Friends met a week ago on Monday, and I attended their meeting. And for the first time, they had a serious discussion about the potential of hosting a smaller scale book fair inside the library sometime in 2022. And I told them that it would be a good thing for them to continue that discussion and to let me know what their thinking is so that we have time to plan and prepare for that. And a group of staff members led by Lori Pulliam is going to get together in the next couple of weeks to talk about what we would need to do in order to prepare. For one thing, the regular store of books that the Friends is used to having at the library does not exist right now because we cleared out that space at the beginning of the pandemic because we needed it. They were a little perturbed to hear that, but I think if they decide that they want to go ahead with a smaller scale book fair and we have time, as I told them, I said, once we let the community know that we're ready to accept donations again, it won't take long for that space to filled up again. So anyway, the first time in a couple of years since I've been suggesting that they try to do something smaller scale at the library, that I think they may finally be ready to try to do something like that. And that was primarily what they talked about at their meeting.
And
Okay.
David, do you think that we will have a flood of post-COVID books? I noticed I was returning some books just south of Lake Street in the book drop, and you've got the QV code saying, if you please put library books in here, do not put donations. And there's there is the code there saying this is where you can take donations. But do you think that after a couple of years, we'll just have this flood of things that won't go into little libraries, but will come to the?
I do think so, because our staff continues to get messages and questions from community members constantly about wanting to donate books. Where can I donate books? Is the library accepting donations of books? So our answer up till now has been, we are not right now, but here are some other alternatives for you. I think that, once we say we're ready to accept them again, it won't take long for people to start bringing a lot of things to the library.
Good luck.
And honestly, the if the friends do follow through and host a book fair at the library, the spaces that we have are much smaller than what was available to them at the high school, and they're not going to need as many materials to fill up a space for a book fair.
Will that then impact the amount that can be raised, I'm guessing, and by
Well, sure. I think that might have an impact on the amount raised, but on the other hand, there are all kinds of expenses that they had when it was hosted at the high school that they won't have to pay having it at the library. I mean, not to
The
mention
high school charged them for security, for time in the building. I mean, they incurred a lot of expenses being at the high school.
Yeah,
I tell you just briefly, Suzanne, as a former professional fundraiser, they should have had like a 20% expense ratio. They had about a 65% expense ratio.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it did not make good sense for them to continue down that path. And so they needed to start exploring an alternative anyway. I mean, this wasn't the way we wanted them to have to get to that, but it's a good, I think hearing David, that feedback has me optimistic that maybe they're also open to exploring other revenue ideas maybe as well, which could be really beneficial.
That's kind of what I was thinking is, how, what is the return on the investment of time and everything with this? And, would there be a way of distributing used books to communities that need books in alignment with some of the new values that are stated from the library with anti-racism and equity, and just wondering if, a direct kind of redistribution and other ways to raise funds, just a thought.
David, were
100%.
they still talking about doing just one book fair a year? I know before somebody had mentioned doing more than one. Is that the direction they're going now, knowing that it has to be smaller, or are they still looking to do just the one?
There was that was a part of the conversation too, Virginia. They I think they would like to try to do one over a weekend in sort of as big a way as they can, like they were used to doing at the high school. But I suggested that, for instance, they were very interested in doing something very specific just for children's, like a children's book fair. And I suggested that, if they wanted to try to do something like that, then they might want to consider having more than one in the course of the year, or have it, over more than one weekend, perhaps, so that they can, if they wanted to do something specifically for children, there could be one just for children over a weekend. So they're thinking about talking about a variety of possible scenarios.
And the spaces they would be using would be like the veterans room?
Yeah, I would think the veterans room and perhaps the small meeting room that's just on the other side of the art gallery from the veterans room. I think that would probably be, we could easily sort of sequester those two areas for them over a weekend or a couple of weekends for them to do that. So anyway, they're going to continue talking about that. I think they're going to try to schedule. Ordinarily now they wouldn't have another meeting at all until January, but I think they were even going to try to maybe schedule a special meeting before the end of the year to continue having the conversation.
All right. Thank you, David. Thank you, everyone. That is some hopeful news about that. Yes. Hopefully next week, Maharima will get some good news on a kids vaccine. The FDA hearing today was very interesting, to be sure. We have our employment and separation report, including the separation of the floaters who handled a lot of that programming. That was the issue of discussion in the public comments earlier. So we will thank you, David, for that. Now we are moving on to new business, our reciprocal borrowing policy.
So this policy originally board approved in 22, had not been reviewed or revised since then, and was very out of date with old language and references to organizations like the Metropolitan Library System that don't exist anymore. And Matt Fruth asked if we could present a revised version for adoption, and here it is. It's a very brief, very simple statement that just reconfirms the library's participation in the reciprocal borrowing program and makes it clear that as a participant, Oak Park residents with Oak Park Library cards have access to the collections of all of the other libraries in Illinois that are members of regional library systems and that participate or choose to participate in the reciprocal borrowing program.
I was a little confused as to the SWAN was not mentioned in this reciprocal borrowing policy.
Because SWAN is our consortium by which it's our shared catalog, but
Okay.
it's the regional library system that and membership in that is pertinent to the reciprocal borrowing program.
Okay.
Because remember also that reciprocal borrowing and interlibrary loan are two different concepts.
Mhm.
Interlibrary loan, of course, is when libraries, when materials go from one library to another. The reciprocal borrowing program is when people go from library to use their cards to borrow materials.
Okay, thank you.
There's no further discussion. Is there a motion to approve this policy as presented?
I'll make the
So
motion.
moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, will the secretary take the vote, please?
Matarima,
Aye.
Ted,
Aye.
Virginia,
Aye.
Colleen,
Aye.
Suzanne,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
and Sarah is also an aye.
Thank you, everyone. Now moving on to our next piece of new business, serving our public 4.0. We do not have to read this now.
Please do not.
And there were several pages intentionally blank. This is not a pipe.
The The per capita grant application for fiscal year 2022, which will be due early next year, has as its primary requirement this year that the Board of Trustees at a meeting review Serving Our Public 4.0 standards for Illinois public libraries, to ensure that the Board of Trustees understands what the standards are, and to ensure that the library is taking steps to meet the standards that are contained in the document. So that's why I'm presenting it for you. Again, as Matt said, there's no need to read through this. I'm happy to answer or try to answer any questions you might have about the document or any of the standards in any of the 13 chapters. When I complete the application for the grant later this year, I will in the application be saying that the Oak Park Public Library either meets or exceeds the standards listed in all 13 chapters of the document. And that will satisfy our requirement for the per capita grant application. But for the purpose of having a public discussion to meet the requirement for the application, do any of you have any questions about the document or the standards or how they apply?
So I was boasting that I read 12 pages on page 8, which is within those 12 pages. I was just, it didn't seem right. There's a core 10 is that the Board of Trustees has exclusive control of the expenditure of all monies collected. That doesn't seem right. I don't know if it's what page, it's page 2 of the, oh no, it's even worse. It's page 2 of the actual document, but it's like the 8th page.
Oh, it's in the among the course standard. Okay.
Yeah, so that's 10.
So which core standard, which one was it again? I'm sorry.
10.
Core 10. The board should, okay, I see it. So you sound appalled by that.
I am. It sounds ridiculous that the Board of Trustees has exclusive control.
I think the spirit of that particular core standard is to ensure that there isn't another government agency that would try to control the library's funds other than the Board of Trustees. So for instance, in some communities, in some cities, for instance, the city government may want to exercise control over the library's budget and how the library expends its money, rather than permitting the duly appointed or elected library Board of Trustees from making that decision. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think that, that's the, and that is, can be the political reality in some communities where there is a struggle for political power, and even though, cities and villages and districts have their own either elected or appointed boards for the library, other government bodies might try to insert themselves into that decision-making process.
Okay. Because it sounded like we didn't trust our staff to make those.
No,
do you know what I mean?
No, I understand what you're saying, but that absolutely, but that's not what's behind that particular
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I can see how where you it sounds very micromanagey, and a little bit like what some of the trustees up in the Maine
Niles,
the Niles, Maine library is trying, or maybe the mayor of Calumet City is trying with their stuff. But yes, I always read that as we set the budget. is more kind of big picture thing, but I can see where it can definitely read micromanaging. So please everyone try to review some of this at your leisure if you are having trouble falling asleep one night, perhaps.
Does anyone have any other questions about any of the other parts of the document?
I just feel sorry for the person who has to write this.
Oh, don't believe me. The people that volunteer to serve on the committee every several years that reviews this, they love this kind of stuff. So don't feel sorry for them. They endure this kind of work.
Nothing wrong with writing really thorough and robust policy documents, David.
Yes, I know, Matt. You are the king of policy honks. I know.
So, all right. Then we will move on to unfinished business, our library for everyone policy.
So if you'll recall the conversation, the discussion that you had at your September meeting about this document, one of the ways that we've responded to some of the comments that you made was to change some of the language in this document, particularly the title of the document that last month was a library for all and is now a library for everyone. Following that conversation, I sent the document back to the members of the Anti-Racism Advisory Team to ask them for their opinions and guidance on some of the things that some of you had to say. And they made their recommendations, and one of them was to substitute the word everyone in many of the places where the word all was being used as a way to perhaps alleviate concern over the use of that word as potentially problematic. And so that was really the primary change between the last month's draft and this draft. And the Anti-Racism Advisory Team discussed it again this morning. There were no remaining concerns about it. I made it clear that it was being presented tonight to the board for another discussion and potentially for adoption. And the team did not, and Stephen, who was leading the discussion this morning, did not have a serious concern about that. So it's presented again this month. If you have any remaining concerns or questions, please ask. Otherwise, we're presenting it tonight for your adoption. And again, to be clear, this statement would replace the library's current policy statement that is called Rules of Behavior. And just for reference, that policy statement was also included in your packet so that you can see what would be replaced with a library for everyone.
I love that the tone is beautifully positive.
Thank you.
This makes me happy.
Excellent.
It's a good change.
Hey, David, I had a question that this really connects to the next policy that's up for conversation, the children's policy or the unaccompanied children's policy.
Yes.
But it was connected to this, and it came up when I was telling someone that I was pleased that we'd done some revision to the children's policy because I think my daughter's responsible enough at 10 to be at the library by herself if she was to choose to do so. But the question that came up was whether or not the library is a peanut-free zone, because their question was if there are children that are a little younger that maybe they're independently but may also have allergies, they're usually accompanied by a parent with proper supports.
Right.
And I said, I don't know that I've ever asked. And I noticed just because there was a snack comment, it was really more of a question like,
sure.
Have we talked to our attorney? And do we have, from a safety policy, any additional liability with young children being unaccompanied if we don't have restrictions about food and beverage? And I don't know what legal requirements we have, but I said I would raise it.
That question has come up many times. The library, we do permit eating and snacks. And therefore, the library is not a peanut-free zone. To permit eating and to permit snacks and to try to be a peanut-free zone would require that the library staff manage and monitor that kind of activity in a way that we never could. So the only way that we could be a peanut-free zone would be to prohibit eating and snacking in the library or specifically in the children's services area. So
I'm not saying we should. The question that came up was just about like young kids that might not know how to handle a reaction. And I said, from a safety standpoint, maybe our staff feels adequately able to support in an emergency. I don't know that statement. So I wanted to check as we were reviewing the policy tonight.
Yeah.
I'm not questioning we should leave snacks.
no, I understand. But
And
It's really more of a legal liability question.
David, the children's section is food free, correct? Completely.
That's what it says.
the children's section are certain
Areas.
or
I can tell you as a parent that spent lots of time in the children's section,
So-
it is not snack free.
right. No. So what the specifically the children's play areas in the children's services area are snack free, but eating in other parts of the children's services area is permitted. So what we have done is we've tried to create certain areas of the children's services area where we're saying snacks and drinks are not acceptable, but in other places they are, so that there can be places in the children's services area that people who have those concerns can be assured that, or as much as possible, that there are places that they can be where they're not going to have to worry about those kinds of allergens, right? But in other parts of the children's services area of the main floor, snacking and eating is permitted. And in those areas, we're not managing necessarily what is being eaten, or if there are peanuts or other potential allergy inducing foods that might be present.
Okay, so I'll just go and comment. I have no problem with policy. I think it's great. I think it's the right tone. I'm very excited about it. I just, from a liability standpoint, if there's any boxes we need to check as a board, I just wanted to make sure that we were checking them.
Thanks.
Sarah, as somebody who carries an EpiPen, and I'm not an attorney, but I believe that there is a good Samaritan rule that if I see somebody who has an allergic reaction and I stick an EpiPen in that person, I'm not liable for a problem. So I think that is kind of covered, but I don't know about Illinois law, but I've been told that that's the case.
I'll trust you, Ted.
Okay, well, you've got my EpiPen anytime you need it.
Hope never to.
All right, is there a motion to approve the policy as it has been presented before us?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Sarah moved it and Virginia seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, will the secretary take the vote, please?
Madarima,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes,
Virginia,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
Suzanne, excuse me,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Sarah's also yes.
Thank you all. The policy is approved.
And then as a part of the action, then, as I also mentioned last month, the other two policy statements, current policy statements that are included in the packet, one, children unattended in the library, and the other, drugs and alcohol. We are asking the board to vote to rescind those two policies with the understanding that the spirit of those two policy statements is now included in a library for everyone policy, so that the things that those two policy statements were designed to manage are included in that new statement. And so staff's recommendation is we do not need to have these two separate policy statements any longer.
Is there a motion to rescind those two policies as described by David?
So moved.
Moved by
Seconded.
Ted, seconded by Sarah. Any further discussion? Hearing none, will the secretary take the vote, please?
Madarima,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Virginia,
Yes,
Colleen,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Sarah's a yes.
All right. Thank you all. Now on to new business. I'm sorry, other unfinished business. Our equity and anti-racism statement.
And this statement also was presented last month for the board's discussion, and it's been reviewed and discussed multiple times by the anti-racism advisory team. And there were some comments from the board last month that informed a few revisions to this statement that I also consulted with the anti-racism advisory team about, specifically adding some additional language to this statement that makes it a little more clear or intentional about the library's allocation of resources specifically for the anti-racism work that we're engaged in. So, for instance, if you look at, find the language here for you quickly. Let's see. Sorry.
I put it in the chat, but I think it's the penultimate paragraph when you say the second sentence, the priorities of equity and anti-racism drive all of the library's work, including its mission and vision and the allocation of its resources.
Yes, the allocation of its, thank you, very, very good. The allocation of its resources, and in the next sentence, on an ongoing basis, the library must identify and address how its policy systems, budgets, programs, and services may be inequitable and serve to marginalize or oppress people. So the statement or the phrase concerning the allocation of its resources was added to this draft statement, and the word budgets was also added to this draft since the last review. And those are really the only changes between last month's draft and this month. And you can tell me whether that satisfies some of the concerns that some of you had regarding being a little bit more transparent or intentional about including language about allocation of resources.
It does to me. And I just wanted to reiterate, I know I said this last month too, but this statement and the Library for Everyone policy, I think I'm just so proud of both of these documents and just so excited and through. This proud sound condescending, but I'm proud to be associated with the library, given the amazing work and on all of this work.
Thank you.
What I really like about this statement too is that we don't try to define what racism is. That in the first paragraph and indeed the second paragraph, we simply say this is a goal. It's the journey is imperfect, but we don't try to define what racism is. And I think it was beautifully nuanced.
It's very interesting that you say that, Ted, because again, Stephen led a rather long conversation with the anti-racism advisory team this morning about exactly that, about whether or not this statement should attempt to define our use of that word racism and what it means. And the decision was not to try to do that in this statement.
Yeah. And I think it's wonderfully nuanced.
And again, just to again be clear, then if adopted, this statement would replace what is currently the library statement called the diversity statement. And if you compare the two, obviously this statement that is presented for adoption is completely different than the previous diversity statement.
Yeah, there's just so much to like about this, like historically, intentionally, and traditionally marginalized people group. Like, it's so complete and direct. And I do like the addition of the allocation and the insertion of budgets into that list, to keep our eye on that.
Yeah.
And any future trustees.
All right. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, will the secretary take the vote, please?
Matarima,
Absolutely, yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Virginia,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Sarah is also yes, emphatically.
Are we now going to vote to rescind the other statement? Or does that just follow?
Just
as it is not
replaces, I think.
necessarily
Yeah.
it's not really a policy because it's just a
Right.
statement.
And
Okay.
right. And what you adopted just completely replaces that.
Okay. Perfect. Then we will move on to our fiscal year 2022 budget.
Final.
And let's hope my team certainly hopes that it's the final. So we're presenting the third draft of the budget tonight for adoption. That includes again all of the priorities as stated by you, the trustees, in previous meetings, particularly regarding salary and wage equity. You have the spreadsheet that Jeremy updated and provided with the help of the team, particularly Billy Treese, our Director of Human Resources. We have a very thorough overview memo from Jeremy explaining all of the different parts of the draft. And that is my team and I really don't have anything more to add by way of preamble to this. You've now discussed this over the course of at least 3 meetings. And I, Jeremy, Billy, and others are here now just to answer whatever remaining questions you might have or try to address any remaining concerns that you might have about the budget for next year. Otherwise, we're simply, again, presenting it for your adoption tonight.
Does anyone have any questions? Things that they want to bring up?
I move to adopt.
Is there a second? Estima Harimo, raise your hand. Is that a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Is there any further questions or discussions at this time? All right. I would just say thank you all. This is putting together a budget is generally is not always easy, and doing it virtually even less so. I thank everyone for their constructive feedback throughout this whole process. I hope that David and the staff and Jeremy and Billy and everyone else feels that we have provided them what they need to make this happen, and that we are, as I know personally, appreciative of all their work that they've put into it, and look forward to seeing what they can do with it. So with
Thanks,
that,
thanks. I think, and thank you, because I think the conversations went very well, and I hope you all think that we've adequately represented what your priorities are in this budget.
all right. With that, it's been moved and seconded. Will the secretary take the vote, please?
Absolutely. Matarima,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes,
Virginia,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Matt,
Maybe, yes.
not funny. Sarah's a yes.
All right.
And then
with
one final resolution then that we would need you to take action on. This is the resolution for financial requirements for the Oak Park Library for the fiscal year, which includes the amount not only for the budget ordinance for the village, but for the levy ordinance as well. And then this document that would need to be both approved and signed by both the president and the secretary, so that it can be delivered to the village of Oak Park.
Do we need to go through the roll again, David?
Yes, please.
yes. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
So moved.
Is there a second? All right, it's been moved and seconded. Hearing no further discussion, will the secretary take the vote, please?
Matarima,
Yes.
Ted,
yes,
Virginia,
Yes.
Colleen,
Yes.
Suzanne,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes,
Sarah's a yes.
that is approved. Thank
And
you
we'll work
all
with,
again.
we'll work with you, Rita or Jeremy, to come by.
Yes, please. Yeah, we really need to make sure we sign it promptly so that we can get it to the village of Oak Park.
Okay.
I can come by tomorrow.
I can try it. I don't think I'll be able to swing by this weekend, but David, I'll be seeing you on Monday, so I can,
Absolutely.
if Monday will work, that'll be good.
That'd be great.
Having concluded all business on our agenda, we stand adjourned.
Wow.
In time for my kids' bedtime. Since Matt's in Springfield, I thank you all.
You are very welcome, Sarah.
Kids are going to be well rested for school. Thank you, Oak Park Library Board.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.